Thank you, Alexander, and thank you everyone for participating here at this COP26 event. It really is encouraging to see how many efforts are being made to limit the damage of the climate change. I'm Manuel from Alpha Protein, and here is Tien, founder of Alpha Protein. We believe that insects are the key to sustainability, and this potential is unleashed in a production plant which is automated, scalable, and cost-efficient, just like ours is. We've heard about the fishing before, and if you've seen the documentary Seaspiracy, you probably know a lot about it. If you haven't seen it, please do so. I recommend it. It is riveting. Although some things of that documentary are a matter of opinion, there are still undeniable facts that initiate change. 60% of the already used fish is exploited to its limit, and 33% is already overfished. Apart from the damage caused by industrial fishing, the use of fish as feed is highly questionable. The counterpart of Seaspiracy, Cowspiracy, initiates change in the land use. To give you an impression of what it's all about, 80% of the global deforestation is a direct consequence of the food industry, and 70% of the world's water consumption is associated with the feed industry. Looking at pictures of the forests or the oceans, just think about the rainforests in Brazil. It's heartbreaking, and it's getting worse every day, every hour, every second. Especially if you think about that the worldwide meat consumption will double by 2050. It's obvious that this way of food and feed industry needs a change. And it's not just about the conditions of the economy, it's also about the challenge of food waste. We heard about Scotland's food waste. There we have 1 million tons of food waste per year. In Germany alone, we have 12 million tons. That's a massive number. Of those 12 million tons, we at Alpha Protein could use almost half of it with grain residues, vegetables, and fruits. Those so-called food waste are products that are still full of nutrients, like old bread from bakeries or leftover vegetables from the field. It is obvious that here's so much potential that we can use and integrate within the circular economy. So, all of those challenges also offer a huge chance that we can take, as insect meal can fully substitute fish meal, as it contains all essential amino acids. And since the world population and the hunger for meat grows exponentially, so does the demand for protein-rich resources. But if insects are the solution, why don't big players are on that train already? Well, the answer is easy, because no one is able to produce insects economically in such massive quantities that are needed. And that is exactly where we come in. We combine German engineering and robust mechanical solutions with an efficient and autonomous plant structure, and combine this together with the principles of circular economy. And with all these solutions, we create Germany's first automated and industrial insect farm. And with we, I mean this team. Although, quite honestly, this picture is outdated because at the moment we have reached 27 employees and we're growing rapidly. At Alpha Protein, we are a diverse team of engineers, scientists, and economists that strive through the same vision of facilitating a secure and sustainable future with our production plant. And it's not just us that believe in our technology. Many international companies believe in and work together with us to design the Agriculture 4.0 for insects. Thanks to globally acting players like SEW, SAP, and SSI Schäfer, it is possible to build up our technology all around the world, which we will do with our licensing model. So, what is it all about here at Alpha Protein? In the center, we have the mealworm. We feed him with byproducts of the food industry, thereby using the circular economy and preventing those resources from food waste. Our main product is insect protein for animal feed. However, in this rearing process occur many other resources that can be used efficiently. For example, the skins of the mealworms contain many chitin, and chitin is a demanded resource in the packaging industry as biodegradable plastic. Also, the frass of the insects is full of nutrients, which is why it is used as an organic fertilizer. As versatile as our business model is also our impact to the SDGs. We directly impact the goals zero hunger, innovation and infrastructure, and climate action by reducing food waste, offering innovative facilities, and producing CO2 negative. The indirect impacts, however, might even be bigger with positive contributions to life below water and life on land, since the use of fish meal and soy will decrease heavily when the use of insect meal will increase. Just think about all the biodiversity that could be saved with insect protein. The potential here is massive. So far, we have successfully prototyped and validated many individual subsystems of our production plant. The key system, the supply portal, has already been patented. We will be building up our first production plant next year on an area of 2 hectares. In this production plant, there will be more than 140 million insects, which are mapping the entire life cycle of the mealworm. The market can be split into pet food market and feed market. If you look at those numbers, they are almost intangible. It is hard to imagine how big the volume really is. The pet food market alone would have been big enough as an entry market. However, with the adaptation of the BSE regulation or mad cow disease, the feed market is available for insect protein as well. Competitors against that background are almost neglectable. We're not talking about a niche market anymore. The cake to be divided became a yeast dough. And in this yeast dough, we at Alpha Protein will be the driving force to establish insect as a sustainable protein source. With our first production plant that we build up next year, we will already be a big player. To catch up with the market leader, we will scale up that first production plant 5 times at least. Also, in the year 2025, we will double that output from the first 2 production plants to 10,500 tons with our third production plant. At the same time, we will start licensing our technology to impact the world globally with our sustainable protein source. And that's exactly how we can limit the damages caused by the climate change. We are looking into a future where we can read on Daily Mail that insects replace a significant amount of fish meal as protein source in the feed industry. And together with your support, we will make this vision become reality. Thank you very much.
Well done, Manuel. Great job. Well done. So, before I come to question. We were chatting last night, and this is the great thing about actually being able to do this stuff in person. And we had a lovely evening as we just got off the bus, and it was the story behind how you set this up and what inspired you, and it struck a chord with what Christine was saying earlier. So just tell us that vignette, Tien, of how you started this, or you got the idea.
Okay, thank you. So the story started 4 years ago, and there's a common saying which says the best ideas are coming from necessity, and that's really the case of alpha protein. So when I started my studies in Boston, I was living in a pescatarian household, so I was allowed to eat fish but not allowed to eat meat. And my landlady, she was running a laboratory at MIT for nanotechnology, and she said, I'm not allowed to prepare meat because there will be nanoparticles all over in the apartment. So I thought, okay, no problem at all, because back in Germany I was used to eat curd cheese, which has a protein content of approximately 10 to 15%. But in the US I found out, okay, they don't have it. The best thing what they had was Greek yogurt with 5% of protein. And I went to the gym every day, and I realized, okay, I'm losing weight. I doesn't feel that fit. My concentration was decreasing, and the coincidence was that my landlady was feeding her chicken in the backyard with mealworms, and I saw the nutritional values, and I thought, oh my God, it's 55%, and you don't see it, but my origin is Swabian, so I usually turn around the penny at least twice. And I love to save money, and then I said, okay, that would be the solution. And at the same time, I thought, no, it's insects. I don't want to eat it. But when the pain was high enough, I said, okay, I will try it. I put the mealworms into my smoothie in the morning, and I reached a protein level of 24%, which is similar to chicken meat. And the smoothie was tasting really good because it was really like nutty, and it was great. And then I talked to my professor in innovation management who have invented LED technologies in his past and is now running the photonics center at Harvard University. And he told me, Tien, that's excellent. There's so much potential in this idea. He offered me to write my master thesis about it, and I did. And then I realized, okay, the market power is not at the producers of the products, it's on the producing of the raw material, because it's so essential to automatize this production to make it cost efficient. And so there are so many studies who shows you that people would pay more for sustainable products, but when you go into the supermarket, you can see many people, for example, when they buy milk, there are organic milk and conventional milk. Most people tend to take the conventional milk instead of the organic milk, even when they say in surveys they would pay more. And that's why I said, okay, why are not the people not using insect flour as an ingredient for pasta, for whatever, for a staple food? The reason is because the production of insect meal was so expensive. And so we created the vision of alpha protein to make this ingredient cost efficient and to make the production really affordable for everyone. And so we can tackle the zero hunger.
Thanks, Tien. I mean, it was absolutely, and he's given the 2-minute and 55-second version of that, but it was absolutely fascinating insight into an entrepreneur's journey, and that's where this stuff comes from. And working with the Baden-Württemberg government and the financial support there, you're on an amazing journey over the next few years. So that's great. But how does it compare to soy? Because that's generally the direct comparison.
Mm-hmm. So when we look at soy and fish and insect meal, we can consider 3 different factors. The nutritional values. So since insect meal is a animal protein source, you have all the essential amino acids, which means they are good for certain purposes or applications. And the second thing is it's much more sustainable because we can use the regional circular economy to feed our insects, for example, from the grocery stores, the leftovers, from bakeries, and we can reduce highly the transportation costs and the transportation emissions. So it's also much more sustainable than soy. And the third thing is the land use. When we look that we're producing more and more soy to feed our cattle and a chicken because they need animal or they need proteins in general. But when we look in the comparison, we can produce at least 1,000 times more protein per year on 1 square meter because we can go into the heights and we have the circular economy.
It's absolutely. First of all, right, Atas.
First of all, it's amazing what you guys are doing. And my first question sounds like, why aren't you focusing on consumer products? Why, cattle and feed industry? And the second one is, what happens when you run out of organic rubbish? How are you going to support the production? If you outgrow your goals very, very rapidly and there's not enough local trash.
To answer your first question, so the psychological inhibitions are so strong that most people can't imagine eating insects. And that's one of the main reasons why we say we have to go into the feed market first, because we have to scale it up to make it cheaper. Because when you look at, for example, an insect pasta, usually you purchase it for €4 to €5 for a package, and that's far too expensive. But when you can make it really cheap by producing the raw materials cheaper, also the people will say, okay, I'm not just trying it to have the experience, but I will eat it because you have the nutrients, it's affordable, and then it's getting more and more common. It's like with sushi. When we had sushi in Europe in the 80s, 70s, everyone was saying, oh, I don't want to eat sushi, it's raw fish you're not used to. When you now go out, you can find sushi stores everywhere. And the same will happen with insects. And to answer your second question regarding running out of food waste, with the growing population, we always have to produce more and more food, and at the same time, it will increase the amount of food waste or byproducts which are occurring during the processing of food and feed.
So there will really always be more food waste than we need in our production plant. I mean, you've seen the slide here, 12 million tons. We really need to scale up really, really, really big to need 12 million tons of food waste.
And on that note, that's a great note to end. Manuel, Tien, thank you so much.